Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, the gorgeous gorge crossing lovers, are kept apart by a huge 500-meter deep ravine that is seemingly the portal to hell. Without any information besides shooting down whatever comes out of the hole, the two are isolated in their respective towers on east and west side of the gorge. But how long until one of them crosses to the other side to pass the time? Scott Derrickson is no stranger to the horror genre, but the pairing with romance is a new one, and then we also got action in there too. It's a bit of everything. So welcome back to Quiet on Set. I'm Ewan Graf and I'm joined by Kevin Dalmans. Does this mix of genres work or does it not?
This movie has 4 genres on Letterboxd, like romance, horror, thriller, and action. The first 40 minutes are romance, or at least drama building up to romance. Then you got maybe 10 minutes of horror, and then we're diving into the thriller and the action section. It doesn't really mix it, it just dives into the next, which is pretty solid overall. I must say, I did have a bit of a YA feel with the Gorge, like a bit of a young adult feeling. I actually don't think it's based on anything, right? I think it's an original movie, which is kind of weird. Because it feels like it's based upon some sort of
short story or something like that.
So the movie that I'm having in my head is like a Maze Runner, a Love and Monsters with Dylan O'Brien. I feel like this is kind of in that same bubble. But I liked it, and funny enough, while it's an original movie and it is very much a stand-alone movie, I must admit I do feel like in the back of the creator's head there's a prequel to this. And I must confess, when I was watching the movie, now I haven't seen the movie, but I was watching a review of somebody reviewing werewolves. And they're saying like, yeah, so they're doing the event, like the Origins event. The movie takes place a few years behind, but actually the origin story would have been much more interesting to watch. And I do think that could apply to the Gorge as well, because the Gorge is very much an interesting place. Now, to be granted, it's a very tiny place. It's only like 4 kilometers long, I believe. So it's not like an entire world down there. But they do enough that I'm like, I kind of want more. And I do think there is more to pull at, because there's not only one creature down there. You see critters, you see spiders, and then you have men. Like the Hollow Men, I believe they're called.
Well, yeah, one of them calls it based off the T.S. Eliot poem of the first guy who was there. Yeah, that's basically the reference.
The strength of this movie, the best aspect of this movie. Do you know what I'm about to say?
An ad for binoculars, maybe?
No,
I don't know.
No, Dan Lauston, the cinematography in this movie is pretty great. Again, I do think Dan Lauston should have won an Oscar for his cinematography in John Wick 4. And he does it again here. Scenes are beautifully shot. Argyle could learn from this whole smoky background display scenery. Because the Gorge is very much like divided up in parts, because you got the purple part, you got a red part, you got a yellow part, hazy part. And I honestly love the production design. It mixes like practicality, like practical elements and CG elements very well. It's a very well made movie. It does feel like a YA movie, so to me the faults of a YA movie are still in here. Sometimes, the romance is a bit
it's a bit, and it's a bit like very surface level with the characters. It's just two attractive people falling for each other, so you can kind of it's the sort of, you can wishful thinking of like it being in the respective shoes of each of the person. Like that's the type of YA stuff what I would connect to when you say YA.
Now you said Miles Teller, you said Anya Taylor-Joy, but there's also Sigourney Weaver.
The thing is exactly, she could be replaced with literally anyone else, and there's no reason why this should be Sigourney Weaver. They really don't do anything with her. It's very uninteresting, that part of it. And to me also the reveal, which we won't spoil here, of like what's down in the Gorge, or like what's happening, is the gate to hell. I mean, it doesn't have the tag of fantasy, so I feel like that already gives it kind of away that it's not leaning more into that territory. And I also don't think it deserves to be called a horror film. I don't think it's really a horror film.
Well, some parts are, for example, when they go into a church, that could be classified as a horror bit for me.
Yeah, I don't know. I also don't think it's a thriller. To me, this is kind of a bit more of an action romance film, more than anything else. But like you said, it does feel like chapters when they go from like one thing to the next, and they spend a large chunk of it in the romance section. And to me, that part of it worked quite well, because like you got two very attractive people who like basically have nothing but time. We get a cute little montage, a couple of fun needle drops, and them kind of connecting on a very surface level thing. But
it's 2 hours, and they decide to develop the characters.
Yeah. They give them a bit of. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It feels like a Cliff Notes version of like actual characters, but I feel like an action movie like this doesn't really need much more than that. I like the moments between them. It's cute. It's also, I think this is a pretty solid release to come out on Valentine's Day, technically. You know, you can this is not the worst thing to like sit on the couch with your significant other and watch. I think there's a bit of everything for everyone in here. That like, you know, the one or two scary scenes are like, oh, this is the one where you cuddle up, and then the action is like, fuck yeah. And then you got the romance. You got a bit of everything.
This is so scary.
It mixes together better than it doesn't. I don't think the look of it worked for me 100%. It like often looks a bit CGI-y.
I was so happy when night scenes looked like night scenes and weren't the same bluish shit and slop we've had. So I'm telling you, when I saw night scenes and they looked like night scenes, I was just so happy, man. I was like, thank you for not making this schlock blue.
I mean, that's fair. I think it's shot well. I just don't think the limitations of when it goes bigger from the romance part, you wonder why there's like this movie costs I think like $120 million to make, and it's like, oh, the action is still coming, the expensive stuff is still coming.
I think that's why they also didn't make the whole movie last in the Gorge, because it was that expensive. Yeah. The Gorge looked expensive, not like it looked bad, but it was just like you can see like, oh, they spent money on creating all this shit. Some of it practically, some of it digitally. I
mean, I have to say, you know, comparing it to Apple to Amazon with the Rings of Power, the way that fantasy design looks, that's ass compared to that. And I think it's so like bright, lacking contrast. There's no, I don't know. And here down in the midst of it all, I think the design is way better. I think the design is stronger. Like the makeup mixed with the CGI that they do here is pretty solid. I think it's entertaining. I liked it quite a bit. I ended up giving it, I couldn't decide between a 6 and a 7, so I'm giving it 6.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 7 out of 10.
So we'll round it up to a 7 for Quiet on Set. I think it's worthwhile if you like a bit of horror, bunch of action, mostly romance, and I guess a thriller because Sigourney Weaver is in it for like 10 minutes. But that's The Gorge. Thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think of it if you've already seen it. Lachlan and I will also be talking about it on a podcast if you are interested in some spoiler talks about the film as well. Check out everything linked below there. You got so much stuff like our Letterboxd, Kevin's Letterboxd, my Letterboxd. You can also subscribe, leave a like, much appreciated, and we will see you soon, hopefully not down in the Gorge.